If time travel were real, just imagine the possibilities. We could rewrite history, prevent tragedies, and even shape the future of our entire existence. The concept of bending time isn't just science fiction. It taps into our deepest curiosities and wildest dreams. But what if time travel isn't just a fantasy? What if it's real, and we just haven't realized it yet? Join us as we share 15 photos that prove time travel may actually exist. Number 15. The 1940s, Hipster. All right, let's start with one of the most debated photos, what people call the 1940s Hipster. It's a seemingly ordinary black and white photo taken in 1941 at the reopening of the South Fork Bridge in British Columbia. A crowd of people is standing around dressed in classic 1940s fashion, coats, hats, you name it. But then, wait a minute, there's this guy. He's rocking sunglasses and a hoodie and holding what looks like a portable camera. You have to remember, this was the 1940s, way before hoodies were even a thing, and definitely long before anyone was using cameras like the one in his hands. This guy stands out so much that it's almost hard to believe he's from that era. Some conspiracy theorists argue he's a time traveler who slipped into the wrong timeline. Skeptics, of course, think it's just a case of early experimental fashion. But let's be real. The way this man is dressed and the technology in his hands seem far too advanced for 1941. Could he be someone from the future who's somehow ended up in this photograph, unaware that he's left behind a major clue? It's a mystery that keeps even the most logical minds guessing. Number 14. The immortal Vladimir Putin. Next up, we dive into the world of political conspiracy with a twist that sounds straight out of a sci-fi novel. Vladimir Putin, yes, the current Russian president, has long been the subject of bizarre rumors. But here's one of the wildest, that he's not just a powerful leader, but a time traveler, or maybe even immortal. We know it sounds crazy, but hear this out. 3 photos taken almost a century apart show Russian soldiers who look suspiciously like Putin. The first is from the 1920s, the second from 1941, and the third, well, that one's from 2015. In each image, the resemblance is uncanny. Same face, same serious expression, same intense eyes. Could Putin be someone who's been traveling through time, popping up throughout Russian history to protect his homeland? Or maybe he's lived through these eras, watching over Russia for centuries. Of course, skeptics claim these men are simply doppelgangers, but the similarities between the images are hard to ignore. Whether it's time travel or something even stranger, it's enough to make anyone question if there's more to Putin than meets the eye. Number 13. The Greek woman with a laptop. Imagine walking into a museum, admiring the ancient Greek sculptures, when suddenly you see something that makes you do a double take. That's exactly what happened when art historians came across a peculiar statue in the J. Paul Getty Museum. The sculpture, titled Grave Niskos of an Enthroned Woman, shows a seated woman with her attendant. Nothing unusual, right? Except for the object in the attendant's hands. It looks strikingly like a modern laptop. Yes, a laptop. This statue was crafted long before the invention of any technology like that, so how could it possibly be there? Some say it's just a box or chest, but if you take a closer look, the resemblance to a laptop, complete with what could even be USB ports, is uncanny. Could this be a hint that someone from the future visited ancient Greece and left behind a piece of technology? Maybe they brought a laptop to show off what the future would hold. Theories aside, this strange sculpture is a tantalizing piece of evidence that makes us wonder if ancient Greeks had a brush with time travelers. Number 12. The self-proclaimed time traveler. This next story sounds too wild to be true, but sometimes reality can be stranger than fiction. In 2003, Andrew Carlson turned an $800 investment into a jaw-dropping $350 million in just 2 weeks by making a series of perfect stock trades. The FBI naturally arrested him, suspecting him of insider trading. But instead of admitting to any illegal activity, Andrew claimed something much more shocking. He was a time traveler from the year 2556. You can imagine the FBI's reaction. But here's where things get even weirder. When they tried to look into his past, they found nothing. There were no records of Andrew Carlson existing before 2002. Then, right before his court appearance, he vanished without a trace. No one has seen him since. Could he have traveled back to the future after being discovered? Was he really from a time centuries ahead, using future knowledge to beat the stock market? Whether you believe his story or not, it's one of the most fascinating and unexplained mysteries linked to time travel. Number 11. The Philadelphia Experiment. Now let's jump into one of the most talked about military conspiracies, the Philadelphia Experiment. In 1943, the U.S. Navy supposedly conducted a secret experiment to make the USS Eldridge, a destroyer escort, invisible to enemy radar. Sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, right? But witnesses claim that something even more unbelievable happened. Not only did the ship disappear from radar, it vanished entirely. According to some accounts, the USS Eldridge reappeared moments later in Norfolk, Virginia, hundreds of miles away. How could that happen? Some theorists believe the experiment created a tear in space-time, allowing the ship to travel through time and space. The U.S. government has always denied the experiment ever took place, but those who believe in it say it's proof of time travel. Whether it's true or not, the Philadelphia Experiment has become one of the most legendary time travel stories in history. Number 10. The Swiss watch in a 400-year-old tomb. Here's a mystery that continues to baffle historians. In 2008, Chinese archaeologists were excavating a sealed Ming Dynasty tomb, estimated to be over 400 years old. As they cleared the dirt and debris, they found something completely out of place. A small, modern-looking Swiss watch. What's more, the watch had stopped at exactly 10:06, frozen in time. The watch's back was engraved with the word Swiss, but how could a watch from Switzerland have ended up in a tomb that predates the very existence of Switzerland as a country? Time travel, perhaps? It's a discovery that defies logic and suggests that someone, or something, from the future may have been there, leaving behind a clue that we're only just starting to understand. The mystery remains unsolved, but it makes you wonder just how many other clues from time travelers we've yet to uncover. Number 9. The 1917 surfer. If you thought the 1940s hipster was strange, wait until you hear about the 1917 surfer. This photograph, taken in Canada over a century ago, shows a group of people sitting on a rocky outcrop. Most of them are dressed in the kind of formal, stiff clothing you'd expect from the early 1900s. But then, there's this one guy. He's wearing what looks like a t-shirt and shorts, with a modern, wind-swept haircut, something that seems way too laid back for the time. When this photo was published in Lester Ray Peterson's book, The Great Cape Scott Story, people immediately started to speculate that the man was a time traveler. How else could you explain his ultra-casual, beach-ready look in the middle of 1917? It's almost as if he was plucked straight out of the 1970s and dropped into a century-old scene. While skeptics suggest that maybe he was just ahead of his time fashion-wise, the 1917 surfer has become one of the most talked-about potential time travelers ever caught on film. Number 8. The Legend of Victor Goddard. Victor Goddard, a British Royal Air Force officer, experienced something in 1935 that still defies explanation. While flying over an abandoned airfield in Scotland, Goddard encountered a violent storm. As he struggled to control his plane, he suddenly found himself flying through the storm and into bright sunlight. But when he looked down at the airfield, something was off. It wasn't abandoned anymore. In fact, the airfield below him was fully operational, with bright yellow planes and mechanics working busily. Goddard was certain that he had somehow traveled into the future, especially when, 4 years later in 1939, the airfield was indeed restored, and the planes were painted exactly as he had seen them. Was this a vision, or had Goddard actually experienced time travel? his story still remains one of the most compelling in aviation history. Number 7. The Large Hadron Collider. Now, if you've ever wondered whether scientists are actually on the verge of discovering time travel, the Large Hadron Collider, LHC, might just be the key. Buried deep underground in Switzerland, the LHC is the world's largest and most powerful particle accelerator. It's designed to smash protons together at incredible speeds to unlock the mysteries of the universe. Sounds cool, right? But what if we told you that some physicists believe the LHC could actually open a portal to other dimensions and even make time travel possible? It's quite a rocket science, but here's how it works. By creating the elusive Higgs boson, or God particle, the LHC might also produce something called a Higgs singlet. These singlets, scientists theorize, could jump into a higher dimension, allowing them to move forward or backward in time. While there's no confirmed evidence that this has happened yet, some conspiracy theorists believe it's already occurred and that people might be using this technology to travel through time without the rest of us knowing. Whether or not that's true, the LHC remains at the forefront of cutting-edge science. And who knows, maybe time travel will one day be one of its greatest achievements. Number 6. Greta Thunberg. The time traveler? You've probably heard of Greta Thunberg, the young climate activist who's taken the world by storm. But did you know there's a theory that she might actually be a time traveler? Stay with me here. There's a photo from 1898 showing 3 children working at a gold mine in Canada. And one of those children bears an uncanny resemblance to Greta. The resemblance is so striking that some people have speculated Greta might have traveled back in time to warn us about the environmental dangers we're facing. Maybe she's seen what the future holds if we don't change our ways and has come back to save us. While the theory is obviously lighthearted, and let's be real, probably not true, it's fun to think about. Whether or not she's from the future, there's no denying that Greta has had a huge impact on the present. Number 5. Time travel during the Cold War. The Cold War was a time filled with paranoia, secrecy, and cutting-edge experimentation. And according to some theories, it was also a time when the US government dabbled in time travel. Enter the Pegasus Project, a top-secret initiative allegedly aimed at manipulating the space-time continuum. Lawyer Andrew Basiago claims to have been part of this project, even going so far as to say he was sent back in time to witness Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address in 1863. But here's where it gets really interesting. Basiago claims that a photo taken at the Gettysburg Address shows him as a young boy. And when you look at the picture, there is indeed a boy in the center of the crowd who looks uncannily like a young Andrew. Whether you believe Basiago's story or not, it's hard to ignore how strange the resemblance is. Number 4. The woman in the Charlie Chaplain film. Here's a case that's truly bizarre. In Charlie Chaplin's 1928 silent film, The Circus, there's a scene where a woman is seen walking in the background, holding something up to her ear. At first, it might not seem like a big deal, until you realize what she's holding looks suspiciously like a modern-day smartphone. Now, keep in mind that this was filmed decades before the invention of mobile phones. So, what on earth could she possibly be holding? Some suggest that the woman might have been using a hearing aid, which was in existence at the time, but it doesn't explain her motion. It looks exactly like someone holding a phone, talking on it, and walking down the street as if it's the most normal thing in the world. Could she have been a time traveler who accidentally brought her future tech into a 1920s movie? The idea may sound far-fetched, but the image is striking enough to make even the most skeptical people stop and wonder, was time travel captured on film all the way back in 1928? Number 3. John Titor, the time traveler. In the year 2000, the internet was shaken by the arrival of a mysterious figure named John Titor. Claiming to be a time traveler from the year 2036, Titor appeared on online forums, sharing detailed stories about the future and the technology that made time travel possible. His mission, he claimed, was to travel back to 1975 and retrieve an IBM 5100 computer, which he said was crucial to saving the future from a catastrophic computer virus. Titor didn't just stop there. He also provided detailed diagrams of his time machine and answered countless questions from curious forum members. Over time, he shared more about his version of the future, including civil wars, global unrest, and the eventual breakdown of modern society. Then, just as mysteriously as he arrived, John Titor disappeared in 2001, leaving behind only his cryptic predictions. To this day, people still debate whether John Titor was a hoax or a real-time traveler. Number 2. The Indian in the painting. Sometimes, evidence of time travel shows up in the most unexpected places. Take this 1930s painting, for example. It depicts an old-fashioned scene, captors and captives, with Europeans and Indians both featured prominently. But if you look closely, you'll notice something odd. One of the figures, a Native American man, is holding something that looks strangely like a modern smartphone. The way he's holding it, with both hands, staring intently at the object, looks exactly like how we hold our phones today. The painting is from the 1930s, but smartphones weren't invented until much later. So what could he possibly be holding? Some suggest it might be a small mirror, but the resemblance to a smartphone is uncanny. Could this be another case of a time traveler inadvertently leaving behind clues? It's a question that has baffled art historians and conspiracy theorists alike. Number 1. The monkey astronaut. Finally, we come to one of the strangest examples of possible time travel, an astronaut. But not just any astronaut, a monkey astronaut. This peculiar sculpture can be found in a church building in Salamanca, Spain. What's odd about this sculpture isn't just the fact that it depicts a monkey in a spacesuit, it's the time period. The sculpture was crafted between the 15th and 17th centuries, long before space exploration was even a concept. How could the sculptor have known what a spacesuit looked like, let alone envision a monkey wearing one? Some say it's simply a modern addition added during restoration work in the 1990s. But conspiracy theorists believe something else. They argue that the presence of an astronaut in a centuries-old sculpture could be proof of time travelers bringing knowledge of future technology to the past. And there you have it, 15 photos that just might prove time travel exists. Some of these photos and stories seem almost too wild to believe, while others make you wonder if time travel is more than just science fiction. So, what do you think? Is time travel possible? Or are these just coincidences and hoaxes? Well, let us know in the comments below. And as we always say, if you find this video interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating content.